You streamed his ballad. You watched the drama where he waited in the rain. You bought the album because the cover photo broke something open in you. You probably already felt something was off. I'm a Korean man. I'm not gonna tell you I was there. I wasn't. I'm going to tell you what's known. In this country, inside the entertainment industry, there are stories that everyone knows and no one prints. Editors know, managers know, the other artists know, their assistants know, their drivers know. The only people who don't know are the people who buy the album. That's mostly you. I'm going to walk you through 3 patterns. 3 kinds of men whose names I won't say because the names aren't the point. The pattern is the point. In a minute, I'll tell you the phrase that circulates in this industry when a girl signs a release. The smile is manufactured. You watched the drama where he turned in slow motion. You watched the music video where he looked at the camera and you felt seen. You probably saved the interview clip where he said his ideal woman was someone real. You love that smile. I want you to keep loving it for 1 more minute. Because the smile is not a feeling. The smile is a posture. The training system in this country teaches a boy how to position his face for 2 to 4 years before any camera is aimed at him. Mouth angle, eye width, chin tilt. The smile that breaks your heart on screen was rehearsed in front of a mirror by a teenager who was being graded on it. This is not a secret. This is the standard practice of the industry. Every major label trains its artists this way. The only people surprised by it are foreign fans who think the smile is a personality. The phrase, by the way, it's not a famous phrase, it's just an industry phrase. When a junior artist signs a release after an incident, the senior staff will say, "She's been taken care of." Not threatened, not silenced, taken care of. It sounds gentle. It sounds almost kind. It is the most disturbing phrase in this language. Pattern 1. The maknae at the dinner. The first pattern is the youngest member of a successful group. Globally adored. Famous for being polite. Famous for crying when his members say something kind. Famous for the way he bows to older women. Every major label has produced one of these in the last 15 years. At least one. The pattern goes like this. The label has a dinner. Foreign investors are present. You don't run a global Kpop company on Korean money alone. You need outside capital. And outside capital expects to be entertained. The youngest member is at the dinner because the investors ask for him by name. The investors don't pay for music. They pay for proximity. A junior trainee, female, is also at the dinner. She is told it's a team building event. It is not a team building event. She is 18 on a document, but younger in person. At some point in the evening, the youngest member smiles at her. She smiles back. She has been practicing too. He says something to a manager about showing her the studio. The manager nods. She follows him out. She does not return that night. She does not return to the company that month. She signs a release. The release is structured as a payment for voluntary departure. The amount, in this industry, is roughly the price of a small Korean car. That is the documented value of one teenage girl's career and silence. The youngest member appears on a variety show within the week. He cries about how much he respects his mother. The audience cries with him. That smile, that same smile, that's pattern 1. The boys who fit this pattern are now in their late 20s or 30s. Some of them are married, some of them are not. All of them are still working. The girls who fit this pattern you have never heard of. That was the point. Stay with me. That's what's known about the dinners. The harder part is what happens next. I thought when I was younger that this kind of thing was an exception. A bad night, a bad man. It isn't. The system runs on this. By the end of this video, I'm going to show you why these men can do what's described and walk back onto your screen the next morning with the same smile. It's not a glitch, it's the business model. Pattern 2. The balladeer. The second pattern is the man whose ballad you played the night you couldn't sleep. There are about 4 of them in this country at any given time. A voice that sounds like he understands loss. The face that suggests he has loved deeply. The pattern goes like this. A female solo artist, rising, with an album about to drop, develops feelings for him. He notices, he plays it. For about 6 months, he gives her enough to keep her hoping. A late text, a studio session that runs past midnight, a coffee in a quiet cafe where, in this industry, a coffee is never just a coffee. Then he stops. He blocks her on every platform. He moves on. Her album underperforms. Her label cuts her promotional budget. She stops working publicly. The story circulates inside the industry that she is going through something. He releases his next single 8 months later, a ballad about a love he has lost. The lyrics are specific to her. Anyone in the industry who was paying attention recognizes her in it. She recognizes herself in it. The song goes to number 1. Women in your country cry in their cars listening to it. The female artist receives a payment. She signs an NDA. She is permitted to continue working in adjacent industries. She is not permitted to discuss the relationship. He continues to release ballads about love and loss. Women continue to cry in their cars. That's pattern 2. The number of women in this country who have been the song without their consent is conservatively in the dozens across the last 20 years. You sang along to several of them. You did not know. You weren't supposed to. Pattern 3. The nation's first love. The third pattern is the actor. Not a singer, an actor. He has been the lead in roughly 6 dramas you have watched. He plays the man who waits. The man who says the perfect thing in the rain. The man who at 40 looks at his wife in the morning like she is sunrise. The country calls him the nation's first love. You probably have a clip saved. The pattern goes like this. A rep dinner. The lead actor is drunk. A junior actress, mid-20s, has a small role in the production. He says something to her at the table. What he says, I will not repeat. What's known is that she laughed. She laughed because that is what you do when an established actor speaks to you that way at a rep dinner. You are not yet powerful enough to not laugh. You will not be powerful enough for at least 5 more years. And by then you will have learned a permanent set of laughs for situations like this. She is not cast in his next project. She is not cast in the project after that. She is not cast anywhere for 2 years. She pivots to commercials and rebuilds. He films a perfume commercial that fall. He plays a man in love. The commercial runs for years. That's pattern 3. There is no payment in this kind of pattern. No NDA, no silence agreement. There doesn't need to be. She knows the rules. Everyone knows the rules. The rules are enforced by everyone, all the time, without anyone ever having to write them down. This is the most efficient kind of silence, the kind that costs nothing and is signed by everyone in advance. Why the mask reattaches? Here is a part that's coming for you too. But first, I have to tell you why these men always come back. It's not a mystery, it's accounting. When a boy is built by this industry, the company has invested years, trainee housing, vocal lessons, dance lessons, image consultants, plastic surgery, in many cases, acting coaches, marketing. The total invested cost on a fully produced star is in the millions of US dollars, roughly the cost of building a small apartment building from scratch. That's the asset. That's the line on the books. A girl who walks out of a room at 17 has no line on the books. She has no value on the company's spreadsheet. She is, at best, a liability to be managed. The math is brutal, and the math is always the same. You manage her with a payment. You manage the rumor with a media partnership. You manage the journalist with a phone call. The asset goes back on screen on Monday morning, smiling. The fans defend him. My oppa would never. The variety producers defend him. The comeback drops on schedule. The mask is still attached. The system isn't broken. The system is doing exactly what it was designed to do. This is why the same kinds of men appear in the same kinds of stories every 5 to 10 years and keep working. This is why the woman in those stories will continue to be women you have never heard of. The asset stays. The witness leaves. You are in the audience. You streamed the ballad. You bought the album. You watched the drama 3 times. You watched the variety clip where he cried about his mother. I'm not saying you funded the dinner. I'm saying the reason the mask reattaches is that the audience keeps catching it. This isn't your fault. You weren't told. The whole point of the system is that you weren't told. The journalists who could have told you were paid. The companies who could have stopped this had no incentive to. The fans who could have demanded better had been emotionally bonded to the asset for years. And the women who knew were silenced, or compensated, or simply tired. The system depends on the audience not knowing. That's not a flaw. That's the entire design. You're not a bad person for loving him. You loved a smile that was engineered to be loved. The engineering worked. The question is what happens to the smile now that you've heard this. You think this is a Korean problem? It isn't. Every country produces men whose public face is a costume. The actor in your country with the kind eyes, the musician with the heartbreak voice, the athlete who thanks his mother on every podium. Some of them are who they appear to be, many are not. Korea isn't unique in producing these men. Korea is unusually good at packaging them and exporting them. We refined the production line. We made the mask thinner. We sell that mask to 40 countries simultaneously. You're watching the most efficient version of a global industry. The boys in your country are running the same operation. They just have less polish. We are the canary in the mine. You are the country next door, watching us cough. The real question isn't whether the men you love on screen are who they say they are. Most aren't. That's true in Seoul. That's true in Los Angeles. That's true in Mumbai. The real question is what you do with the love you've already given. You can't take it back. The streams have been counted. The albums have been bought. The girls in those rooms cannot be unsigned from their NDAs by your regret. But you can stop assuming that the smile is the man. You can stop confusing the engineering for the person. You can hold a different standard for the next one. If enough audiences do that across enough countries, the math on the books shifts. The asset stops being safe. The mask stops reattaching. That's the only way this changes. Not from inside, from the audience refusing to be the reason the mask works. Tell me in the comments, was there a moment a public man you loved turned out to be different than you thought? The actor, the musician, the athlete, the leader. I want to know what that moment did to you and what you did with the love after. Stay real, because that's what I crave. This is Kpop Records. See you in the next video.